A weigh station scale is calibrated to 1/4 of a pound. An empty semi still reads around 30,000 pounds. The truck itself weighs that much before you add a single crate. So the night a truck rolled onto my platform and the display blinked to 0.0, I assumed the load cell had died. I stepped out to wave him around, and felt the ground shudder under 80,000 pounds of steel that my scale swore wasn't there. If stories like this keep you up at night, subscribe. Now, back to the night shift. I run a stateway station out on the interstate, the graveyard shift, 11 to 7. It's a booth, a set of scales built into the right lane, and a big lot where we pull trucks in for inspection. 2 lights on a post tell every driver what to do. Green means you're legal, roll on. Red means pull in, we need to look at you. After midnight it's just me and the highway and the fog that comes up off the river. You learn to trust the scale, because the scale is the only thing out here that never lies. It's certified by the state, sealed, accurate to 1/4 pound. The number it prints can put a trucking company in court, so it does not round, it does not guess, it does not care whose night it ruins. Every truck that crosses gets a weight, a photo, a timestamp, and a ticket. An empty rig reads 30,000 pounds. A legal load tops out at 80. In 6 years I had never once seen that scale read anything it shouldn't. Then it read 0. Merle trained me. 22 years on that scale, a gray beard and hands like tree roots. First week, he told me the only rule that mattered, and I thought he was joking. Some nights a truck comes through weighing nothing, he said. You clear it. You wave it on. You do not stop it, and you do not open the trailer. I laughed. He didn't. Then came the truck from the Ostrander grade. Tuesday, October, 3 a.m. Fog so thick the highway lights were just smears. A tractor-trailer came up the on-ramp, the north ramp, the one that curls down off the old closed grade nobody's driven in years, and rolled onto the scale. The deck shuddered. I felt it in my teeth, the weight of a fully loaded rig. And the display blinked to 0.0. I typed a manual reweigh. 0. I leaned to the glass to read the door. Ostrander Freight, a company that folded after the pileup, its trucks all scrapped or burned. And in the cab, a driver sat staring straight ahead, and off the trailer, in clear October air, poured river fog like the thing had just been dragged up out of the water. I want to be honest about what my body did before my brain caught up. It said, do not make this truck stop. I hit the green light. The rig pulled forward toward the lot, and it went, and I stood there with my hand still on the switch, cold all the way through. I called Merle at home. Woke him up. Told him a truck just crossed at 0. 22 years, nothing rattled Merle. He asked if I'd stopped it. I said no. He let out a breath like a man who dodged something, and then he drove in, on his night off, in the fog, and he did the parts one didn't know to do. He printed the ticket, and the ticket came out of the machine warm and smelling of smoke. He carried it to a brass tube in the back wall, an old message tube, disconnected for decades, that used to run to a district office on the far side of the gorge, and he dropped the ticket in. I heard it travel a long, long time. Way too long for any pipe in that wall. Then he sat me down. You clear the 0, he said. You never make it stop. You never open the trailer. And you send the ticket down the tube. I asked him where the tube goes. He said, back. It goes back. And his hands were shaking. Now, question number 1, the one I couldn't sleep on. That truck came up the north ramp. The north ramp only connects to the old Ostrander grade, and the grade's been closed since the fog pileup that killed a whole chain of trucks up on the river bridge. So the truck came from a road that dead ends at a torn-out bridge. It came from nowhere, weighing nothing, and I waved it toward the lot, and at dawn the lot was empty. I didn't get to sit with that long, because the 0 trucks didn't repeat. They climbed. The second one, November, stopped on its own. Didn't wait for a light. It rolled onto the scale, read 0, and the air brakes hissed and it just sat. The cab door opened and a driver climbed down, coveralls, a clipboard, boots that made no sound on the gravel. He walked to my booth window. He never spoke. He held the clipboard up to the glass, a manifest, a bill of lading, and he ran his finger down it, and then he looked at my face and back at the paper, at my face and back at the paper, the way you check an address against the house before you unload. Then he nodded, like it matched, climbed back up, and drove on. I don't know what was on that manifest. I've been afraid of the answer ever since. The third one taught me the tickets were the real horror. December, a 0 truck, and this time I made myself pull the record the scale had just written. The ticket was perfect. Valid carrier number. Valid VIN. Certified gross weight, printed by a sealed state scale. Everything a court would ever need. So I ran the VIN. That truck had been crushed for scrap after the pileup, flattened, shredded, logged as destroyed years ago. A truck that did not exist had crossed the scale that cannot lie, and the scale had certified it, in writing, warm from the printer. When I asked Merle how that was possible, he said 4 words and walked away. The paperwork checks out. That was the thing that broke my logic. Every 0 truck was procedurally perfect. Valid plate. Valid load. Correct axle spacing. The scale that never lies kept saying yes to trucks that were ash and scrap. So I started keeping a notebook. And I started digging into the grade. The Ostrander grade isn't just a closed road. It's the original highway, the one they ran before they built the new bridge downriver in the 70s. There's a survey map in the station office from before any of this, and on it the grade crosses the gorge at a place marked with a word, except somebody scratched that word out with a pen, pressed so hard the paper tore. The pileup everybody talks about was bad, a dozen trucks in the fog. But the oldest wreck I could dig up on that crossing was a river ferry that went down in 1911, loaded, in fog, before there was a road there at all. And the very first 0 ticket in Merle's box was dated the year this station opened. Whatever the grade was, it had been sending loads to a scale before there was a scale to send them to. I stopped asking Merle about it after he told me what he'd done once, years back. He'd zip-tied a numbered inspection tag to the mirror of a 0 truck, just to prove to himself it was real. 3 nights later that exact tag came back, not on a truck. It came up the brass tube, into his hand, scorched black and still warm. And the truck it belonged to rolled across the scale that same night, and on toward the grade without slowing down. Merle never logged the 0 tickets in the state system. He sealed them and fed them to that brass tube, the one that runs to a district office that burned on the far side of the gorge. I asked who's on the other end. He said he opened the tube once, his second year, reached in as far as his arm would go, and felt nothing but cold air moving, cold, wet, river air, breathing out of a pipe that's supposed to dead end in the wall. He never reached in again. 22 years of tickets going down a tube nobody empties. One slow night I dropped a carrier in and put my ear to the brass, and I heard it fall and then, very far away, land in water. I have never opened that tube. I don't want to know what's downstream. Then, in February, Merle had a heart attack right there in the booth. He lived. But he was done, retired on doctor's orders, and the state started rotating in fill-in operators to cover nights. People from the day office who'd never heard the rule, who thought a scale reading 0 was just a scale that needed a technician. And I was the only one left out there who knew better. First week of March. 3:10 a.m. A fill-in named Dwyer, by the book, 40 and proud of it. A rig came up the north ramp in the fog and crossed at 0.0. Before I could reach the panel, Dwyer read it as a malfunction, and he did the one thing you never do. He hit the red light and keyed the mic. "Driver, pull into the inspection lane and open your trailer." The whole booth dropped 10 degrees. The truck stopped. Not idling, stopped, dead silent, like the whole night held its breath. Dwyer said it again, annoyed now. And the driver's door opened, and the driver leaned out and looked past Dwyer, straight at me, the one who knew. And he spoke in a voice that came up from somewhere deep and drowned. "You know how this works." Not angry. Almost kind. Then his eyes went to the back wall of the booth, to the brass tube he could not have seen and had no way to know was there, and he climbed back up and pulled out toward the grade. The trailer doors, I saw then, had been standing open the whole time. There was nothing inside but fog. The CB in the booth came on the next night at 3 a.m. exactly. A dead channel, one nobody's used since the grade closed. No voice. Just a diesel idling somewhere in fog, and under it, water, moving slow, patient, with all the time in the world. It came on the next night. And the next. So the fifth one was mine. April, another 0 on the scale, and I didn't call anyone. I logged in with Merle's old operator code, which I am absolutely not supposed to have, cleared the truck, waved it on, printed the warm ticket, and fed the tube with my own hand. The driver lifted 2 fingers off the wheel as he passed, the way a regular thanks a man who already knows the drill. The CB went quiet that same night. And here's the part one need to say out loud, because it's the part that actually scares me. I didn't hesitate. The man who filled that notebook in October, who ran Vince at dawn demanding the world make sense, he was gone, and I hadn't noticed him leave. Now the scale alarms at 3 a.m. and my hand's on the override before I've even looked at the door. I don't run the plates anymore. I don't watch them reach the grade. Last week a new day shift kid asked me why some tickets never show up in the state system, and I heard myself tell him, in Merle's exact voice, "You clear the 0, and you send it down the tube, and you never make it stop." I didn't decide to say it. It came out already worn smooth, like I'd said it for 22 years. Merle called me in the spring, before he moved south. He didn't ask how I was. He said, "You keeping the count?" I said yes. He said, "Good. Someday it's yours to hand off." He didn't say to who. I didn't ask. That was the moment I understood I'd stopped being the man who asks. I still work nights. The scale is still mine. And last month, on a dead slow shift, I did something I'd never done. I pulled the station's inbound log and searched it forward, past tonight, into trucks that hadn't come yet. We schedule nothing out here, trucks just arrive. But the log had an entry waiting. A truck. No date I could trust. Origin, the Ostrander grade. Carrier blank. VIN blank. Gross weight 0.0. And on the driver line, where a name goes, was mine. It had been sitting in the system since the exact night I first fed the tube. The night I stopped asking questions. I told myself it's a glitch. My name's on 100 forms out here. Of course the system knows me. But that Ostrander truck was scrapped years before it ever rolled onto my scale, logged as destroyed, and still the paperwork knew its weight before it reached the platform. The scale always knows what a load weighs before it ever gets there. Even a load that's still driving. Even one that still thinks it's the man in the booth. So now I keep the count. And I lie awake wondering how long my name has been sitting on that driver line, weight already printed at 0, waiting for the night I come up the north ramp out of the fog, roll across my own scale, and wait for whoever's standing where I stand now to look up, read nothing, and wave me on toward the grade. If this story kept you watching until the end, subscribe, there's a new one every week. And if you're ever driving the interstate at 3 in the morning, and a truck rolls up beside you out of the fog with no sound and no weight to it, don't flash your lights. Don't wave. Just let it pass, and let it get where it's going.